Okay, here we are. I got inside the tank, banged out the dent for the most part, but it didn't come out completely even. It didn't pop out. So we do need to do a little filler. This is an 80 grit finish, and I did cover it with, actually this is a sanding block for drywall. But this material, this sanding material, is really good for this, and it's on a block too, so I could actually block off the dent here a little bit to find any high or low spots, or high spots anyways that may have needed to be pounded, tapped down a little bit to make sure that this surface is below where we're actually going to do the fill. And we go in several different directions to make sure that, and we can see it a little bit in the scuffing of the tank, that it's going to be pretty good to go. So first thing I'm going to do, I mentioned this earlier, this is some material. It's called RM Pre-Cleano. It's old. This bottle has got to be 15 years old, and what it is, it's a silicone and wax cleaner. And what we do now is, because hands have been on it, we go ahead and clean the area with this Pre-Cleano, and this area now is ready to take on the body filler. For this area, I'm going to go very gently and very light on the cleaner. On the body filler. But I'm going to make sure the area is really clean. Bondo, some filler material. I'm going to go ahead and mix up very little bit for this, as I'm in no rush, and I can put on a couple of coats without any problem whatsoever. That being the case, I'm only going to use a really small amount initially. With hardener, tend to overdo the hardener a little bit. Oftentimes we do. So if you need hardener and you're going to do a larger job, get plenty of it. And now we just blend the hardener with the filler to a uniform color. It should come out kind of pinkish or a light red. And this will start, you've got about 15 minutes, 10 minutes, depending on how much hardener you put in, and depending on the temperature of your room, will depend on just how much work time you have to work the filler. This is the type of squeegee you'll use, or spreader, and we just get that out and spread it out. Again, you can see it's now a relatively uniform color. Doesn't take much to go ahead and get it mixed up. It's now curing, and it will flash off pretty quickly, or start to set up very quickly. I don't have a cheese grater, what's called a cheese grater in the industry, which actually is a lot like a cheese grater, literally a cheese grater you'd pull out of your kitchen cabinet. When this material starts to set up, it'll set up a lot like a piece of initially it gets to be almost cheese-like, and you can get your rough setting very quickly. I'm going to just go ahead and put this in. With a hand, I can tell where it is. It's about this area. I'm going to go ahead and just spread this in here like so. As you can see, even the small amount I mixed up, and if we just give it a little scrape, we'll see where it kind of stays behind. You can see this is all low. So the room here is around 75 degrees. Try not to get it too far over your work. When it hardens really hard. And then we will sand it down. Alright. take off any bits and pieces that walk around on you. That actually is just, we're going to just let that set up for a minute. Okay, here we are. I've block sanded down. Grabbed a block and some paper. Going in different directions, top to bottom, back to front, cross, and cross. You end up with a reasonable sense of what this is supposed to look like. Your fingertips will actually do far more telling of the surface than your eyes will. Far more. Run your fingers over it and your hand over it. At least on the tank here, I have the other side, so I can kind of feel what it should feel like on both sides. I can tell it's slightly low. Just barely low. Not enough for spot putty, which we'll get into. So it does need a very slim, yeah, it needs a very, very light coat, another coat, very light coat. So we'll put that on now. Mix up a quick light coat that goes on top of that, and then that should be it for this particular job. We'll continue. Alright, I mixed up a very, very small, just a teaspoon. And this we're going to apply as the final filler coat. I'm going to extend out a little past it so when I sand I get an idea of where high and low, if there's any further high and low may be. But I'm going to just pull it past the job in several different directions.
Remember to spread the filler beyond your work area because you will soon be sanding it back.
Alright, clean up the edges so there's no real hard edges, best as possible. And that looks good. Once it starts to set up, don't touch it anymore. Once you get to a point, you're going to have an inclination to keep trying to spread it and keep playing with it. Stop. Just let it go. The worst comes to worst, you got to sand it down and put another coat on. Put thin coats on. That's the key. If you try and build out that dent all in one shot, it's a nightmare. Literally. It takes a lot to sand it. It's just a real chore to do it. Having around, you know, some old. This is obviously a quick job. Inside, I'm not at a shop, you know, and. But it's a small job, and so this'll set up real quick. It's starting to set up already, and it's warm in here, so this'll set up, and that's about the last coat. That's all I'll need to do. From here, we'll go to an etching primer. We will prime this area, sand it again to find out any scratches and any real little problem areas, and then we'll use a spot putty. We'll use this as a guide coat, not just a primer, but what's called a guide coat. We can use this as well. We'll put it on really, really light, very light, just dust it on, and then sand it. And the sanding will show us any high or low spots or any little lines that need to be filled in. And we will be done using this. We'll use something called spot putty. Alright, this is looking pretty good now. Down to bare metal. I've cleaned it with pre-clean. I'm just going to layer a very light coat of primer, etching primer, very, very light. The primer will help us see any imperfections, highs, lows, especially when we hit it with a sander, another block sander. We'll be able to see well, for the most part, very close to what needs to be fixed up on the job. If anything's low, it needs to be brought up. But right now we use the primer just to get an idea of the overall surface, and we'll hit it with a sandpaper on a block, and it'll highlight any highs or lows in the area. That's it. We'll let that dry up for a few minutes and we'll come back.